Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second stately office hours of the year. I haven't lost track of the count. We are at our 59th total office hours. This is where us, the team at Stately, share what we've been working on with the Stately Studio and on XState. Let's start off, as we traditionally start, with the team introducing themselves. I'll start with me. I'm Laura, and I do advocacy for Stately. How about you, David?
Hey, I'm David. I work at Stately. I make state machines.
He just works here. He's not the
Yeah.
founder or anything like that. And Fazad?
Hello everyone, I'm Farzad and I do engineering stuff.
And
Casual
everyone's
intros
downplaying
today.
themselves today. Nick, you're next.
Yeah, I'm Nick, and I do some stuff too, design especially.
He makes stuff pretty.
No, that is the classic mistake about what designers do. They don't just make things pretty. Although they happen to make things pretty while they make things work really well.
Exactly.
Anders, how about you? What kind of stuff do you do?
I usually take Nick's drawings and make them into pixels so that our users can push them. So, yeah, I also do engineering, software stuff, state machines, TypeScript stuff, a lot of stuff.
It's going to be one of those weeks, isn't it? How about you, Kevin?
Well, of course, I'm the team stenographer, so long as AI doesn't take over my job. But I'm also working on engineering.
It's all right if the subtitles for the office hours every week are anything to go by. AI is not stealing our jobs anytime soon. It really doesn't understand how to do subtitling when we're talking about technology and code. So I think we're safe. That is why our subtitles are manually edited, I should say. So our subtitles are always good, just maybe not immediately after the video is streamed.
Mm-hmm.
So this week we have a lot to share with you. There's so much exciting things going on in the studio. I think that if you've been in there already, you might have already seen some of the features that we'll talk to you about. But let's start off talking about XState because we've had a few things added recently. David, do you want to tell us a little bit about the create actor context?
Yeah, sure. So this is something that that we teased like I think a week or two ago, and then we just started working on it. And from ideation to release, it only took I think under a week. So it's pretty incredible. And we had a lot of help, including from Mateusz, Farzad, did some very important bug fixes recently. But anyway, the biggest problem is how do you make the state from state machines global in React? It's not that it wasn't possible before. It was just sort of difficult to do. People were writing their own wrappers for this. The typing was a problem, and it just wasn't very ergonomic compared to other state management libraries like Zustand, or even Redux. So now we have introduced something called createActorContext, which you could see right over here. And so createActorContext is a function that you pass it a machine and it returns a React context. And so you could just call the provider over here. And that machine, the interpreted machine, which we call the actor, is going to be available to everything underneath this provider. So it works just as you would expect. And of course, you might be thinking like, I could build this myself. But we've seen a lot of people actually really thankful that we're providing this helper. And so with this, you get some nice helper methods like use actor and use selector, which allow you to strongly type what's selected from here, and also the state and the send method from the actual actor. So it makes it really easy to share your machines app-wide. Yeah, so now we have two main use cases inside of React, which is having machines represent local states, so for individual components, and having machines easily represent more global states. So we just posted a blog, Making State Machines Global in React, and I highly recommend you read that. It's also coming to the documentation very soon because that's next on my to-do list.
And where do folks go if they want to use this?
Oh, right. So you could install it in the latest version of XState React. So that's XState React, and it's as of version 3.1.0. And so if you're not using XState React, then let's look at our new docs, but there should be. Ooh, I'm also showing off the docs. So you could install the XState React package over here, and it's pretty easy to use.
Fabulous. And if folks want a more in-depth demo of this, you can watch our Stately stream from earlier in the week, where David showed Kevin and I how he would use this. And so it's a good old long demo and lots of useful examples in there. So I highly recommend you check that out. I'll put a link to it in the description of the video after we're done. Now, next up, more on XState, David. We have XState Solid.
Yeah. So if you're interested in Solid, which Solid's a very interesting framework, it's one of the newcomers. And if you're not familiar with Solid, it's a framework that really leans on reactivity, and it's truly magical how it works. It really feels almost exactly like React, except I would say that there's much less boilerplate in terms of reacting to state changes and things like that. I'm not a Solid expert, but I've talked to Ryan Carniato many times, who's the creator of Solid, and it's just truly an interesting framework. So I do recommend you check it out. And a lot of people have been asking for an XState Solid integration. So it is now out. We still have to write documentation in the blog post, but you could install it at XState Solid. So this right here. And if you're coming from the React world, this is going to feel a little uncanny because this looks exactly the same as a React component. You use the use machine hook, you pass in the machine, and then you have state and send. And yeah, I mean, there's different Solid idioms, but it's all still pretty much the same. So yeah, if you're using Solid, give XState Solid a try. We've worked really hard on it, and it's actually a community contribution. So I just want to say thank you to the person who, not Matish. Well, Matish reviewed it, of course, but the original person who contributed this, Austin. So thank you so much, Austin Golding, for your contribution. It's a year in the making, so we're so excited that it's finally out.
Wow, thank you, Austin. And there have been a lot of people in the community asking for Solid implementation, so that's so helpful. Thank you. And if anyone else wants to write integrations for any of the other frameworks, I mean, you're very welcome. So let's get onto the studio, because it's looking very different. And there's a very specific reason for that. And that is some of Nick's work that he's been doing recently. Nick, would you tell us a little bit about the menu that people may have found in the studio?
Yeah, so this week we released a small update, maybe not the flashiest, but I think it's one that people will enjoy. I'll just do a quick demo of this here. So whenever you're in the editor now, we now have a little stately logo up in the corner here. And if you click it, you get an editor menu. So basically, we've added all this functionality over the past few months, and we needed a place to just put everything. Like the kind of if you were in a native app, it might be in the top of the screen. Basically, anything like that might go in here. And so you can see right now, we have a way to access your project that you're currently in, the options that are currently on the current machine. You can do canvas editing functionality, just the view and help. And now we'll be adding to this over time. Certainly, if you have any ideas or requests, we can try to accommodate that. And yeah, I guess the only other thing I'd add is, it involved some refactoring to get all of the actions to work in this place. And Anders handled that and did a great job about it.
Yeah, it looks really great. It's already so useful just to have everything in that one location. I've been using it already a lot, and I found it really valuable. It's speeded up the process of especially like managing the machines I've already got as well when I want to move things around and edit the settings. It's made a huge difference. And the undo and redo, I love the new little icons we've got in there. There's now no text labels alongside them. It's just the undo redo, but I think we all know what those mean.
Yeah.
And another thing that we have got is the ability to import multiple machines. Fazad, do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Sure thing. So what I worked on, one of the features that I worked on over the past couple of weeks was to be able to import multiple machines into the current project that you open in the studio. So to create machines, as you might have previously known, you could just go to the left sidebar here, and then there was an option to paste the existing code, like a JSON, TypeScript, or JavaScript code of a machine that you have, into this, and let the studio figure out how to visualize the diagram of it. But previously, it was possible to provide a name and provide the code at the same time. We decided that it's a little bit confusing because if you have a name, you could also have an ID in the machine, and it was not explicit behavior to understand which one was overriding the other one. So we decided to put a toggle in between. You either provide a name, which will create a default machine, or you go on and paste the code for the machine that you have. Now, for pasting the machine, you can go on and paste a single machine definition. That will be a single create machine call here, or now you're able to paste multiple machines. There are cases where you have multiple machines in your project or your like file or React component or anything, and you want them all to be visualized at once. It's a really nice utility. So if you have 2 machines right now here, we will identify all of them, and we will make like a machine in the current project that you have open in front of you for each of the create machine files that define. So let's call one of them A, initial state A. There's only one single state there. Then we have.
Could you just zoom in a little bit on the
sure.
sidebar there? That's great, thank you.
Okay, yeah. So the A machine and then the B machine here starts from initial state B, and then there's only a single state B. So if you create the machine right now, you would see that there are 2 machines added to the project, and one of them is marked as a selected, and each of them have their own corresponding configuration that we parse out of the code that you just pasted. Now, this is good because this can come in really handy. One thing here is we will get the name of the machine and put them as the machine name here from the ID of the machine. And if you don't provide anything, we're just going to default them to a default string called new machine. And this is a backward compatible behavior because it was working like that before. Now, how does this affect importing or updating the current selected machine? Well, if you try to import multiple machines at once to update the existing machine here, the selected one, we will detect that and we'll tell you that we have found multiple definitions because it's impossible for us to determine which one we need to pick out of multiple ones here and update the current machine. So you're only able to only paste one code here and then import it and update the current machine. Now it looks exactly the same because I pasted the exact same code. But I promise
we get what you mean.
Yeah, you get the idea. Yeah, but this doesn't affect the playground, which is s/registry/new. That one already, there is no notion of projects because that code is not saved unless you go on and save it explicitly. And of course, you can't update that with multiple definitions as well. So that's exactly like updating the code here, only that the machine isn't saved at the time of editing. So that's all there is to importing multiple machines.
Fantastic. That's going to be really useful for a lot of people, really speed up the process of getting their code into the studio. Now, earlier when we were talking about about Solid, Andrew asked, what are all the integrations? I guess I probably use integration as the wrong word. We've got a lot of different packages and templates, I'd say is probably the better word for XState. Mm-hmm. The best place to go and find those would be in the XState repository, which I probably have a link to somewhere here.
Yeah. And just off the top of my head, we have React, Vue, or actually I'm cheating. We have React, Vue, Svelte. We now have Solid. And also there are templates for Stencil, if you use Stencil, which is a web component framework. And Angular is a work in progress. Our own Mateusz was able to get a demo up and running, and there's currently an open, I think it's either a PR or a discussion discussing what a proper Angular template / integration would look like, but it's not too difficult to add XState into Angular. But yeah.
Great. Well, and if you have any packages or any templates or any examples that you'd like to see from us, of course, you can always go to statelyai.canny.io, and there we have a board which has our roadmap, and you can also vote on features or examples or anything that you want us to make for Stately and for XState, and you can upvote on other people's suggestions as well. And we use all of this to help us prioritize when we're releasing features and what we can work on. Now, next up, Kevin, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've been doing with versioning?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually very much in progress. We're getting towards the end, and it's very exciting. So let's see, Nick and Anders and Gavin and I have been working very hard to put versioning of machines together. And we're focusing on the ability, as you work on your machine, to basically very quickly take a snapshot and create like a version of that at any time. You can then go back and view those versions. You can give them names, things like that. So what can you do with the version? Well, basically you will be able to fork a new machine from that version. And of course, you'll be able to restore that version to be sort of like the head of your machine as well. So all of this is going to be, really convenient and a good way for you to kind of maintain your history of your work and also spawn off other projects that are based on different versions. Because I find that a lot of times you're really experimenting, on the editor canvas. You're just sort of trying out different things. What if I modeled my application this way, or if I modeled it that way? And this way you can really maintain, multiple versions and navigate between them easily. So that's coming soon. We're going to demo that, probably at the next office hours. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's a really exciting feature.
Also, just to talk about like how people are currently doing this, you would have to fork the machine, and this is how I've seen users do it: is basically fork the machine and then work on that fork in the machine and maybe call it like V2. So basically the same old school way of like versioning design files. So
Yeah, exactly.
this eliminates that pain.
No copy, dash final, dash. This is really the final one.
Exactly.
Kevin and I have been working on through over quite the past few months, trying out modeling different machines and creating examples from them. And we've got a fun one that we wanted to share with you this week, and that's our Pastel de Nata machine from Lisbon. Kevin, there we go. Show you, this is a great machine that we've been working on, all to do with the workshop that we did in Lisbon on learning how to make Pastel de Nata as a team.
Yep. So this is it. This is the vision test. You can tell us the smallest row you can read. Let's see. Okay.
See how big a machine it is.
Yeah, but let's see. Okay, so here's our Pastel de Nata. This is the team, plus friends. And basically, like Laura, you said, we have converted a recipe into a machine, which is actually an interesting exercise in and of itself. And it consists of roughly, let's say, we had like 3 or 4 parts where we needed, of course, to gather the ingredients. We also made the puff pastry. And then once we did that, that was pretty interesting. We did all kinds of techniques here: pounding the dough, rolling it out, cutting it, folding it, and then once we did that, we moved on to, let's say, the filling, which is this yummy, creamy custard-like filling. And then we had to actually assemble everything. So we lined these little special cups or these little containers that are special for pastel de nata, and we let's say filled it up with this interesting little
custard dispenser
custard dispenser thing. And fast forward, then we pulled it out. They actually come out very puffy like this, which is pretty interesting that they're so tall, and then they kind of collapse onto themselves, and then they're delicious. So, and they were best when they were warm and fresh right out of the oven. So
Yeah. Oh, it looks like the image at the end is broken. That is inevitably something that I've done wrong.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was wondering where the finale was, but okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but yeah, this is also shows an example of how you can use images in your descriptions in machines as well. You can include them as markdown. What we did here is we actually just made a little bucket for our images on Supabase, and we've used those for adding the image URLs. In the future, we hope to be able to, you'll be able to drag images in and use them. Like, you got to keep nudging Fuzzard for that because he keeps saying that he'll do it because it's something I'm really keen on using. But right now you can just use the image URLs inside of your markdown. So you just use a little image tag in there, and you can just include images just like this in your machine. You can do any images you want. I think it's a fun example. And if you have any recipes you want to share with us, we'd love to see them as state machines. I think they do make really cool state machines.
And that's the thing. Yeah, we were talking about recipes are not linear. Like, if you've ever like done real cooking, I'm not a cook myself, but you realize that all these steps, like, you could do them at different times. And if you don't have an ingredient or you don't have the right equipment, you have to do something else. Like, there's so many things to think about where it's not just step 1, step 2, step 3, you're done.
Yeah, that was one of the. Oh, sorry, you go.
And once we release focus mode, being able to focus on a particular state at once, then it becomes actually very practical in addition to just kind of cool.
Yeah, you'll be able to actually use it to follow the recipes without getting distracted by the previous and next steps. Absolutely. And one of the things that Kevin and I found interesting when we were modeling was the steps where you do end up repeating the same thing over and over again. And that was quite an interesting area to model. So for those, that's when we end up using guards, because we're using guards for sort of checking whether something is ready or whether we need to keep doing it, and using self transitions in that way as well.
Yeah, here's an example. There are several examples here where we're just doing repetitive motions. Yeah.
Which is something that's very common in a lot of the machines that we would make anyway. It's not at all unique to the recipes as well. Yeah, and Martin says after this time your target cooked. Is exactly, we do have a few time-based afters in there for sure. Did anyone else have anything that they wanted to share this week on our office hours? We've really sped through everything. We're getting very efficient. And does anyone have any questions, folks who've come and joined us live in the comments? If you have any questions you want to ask us, please do. That's what we're here for. We're always happy to answer any of your questions.
Cedric asks, do you have some feedbacks on the roadmap, V5 testing package, etc.? I'm taking a look at the roadmap right now, and we keep a close eye on it. A lot of the things we will mark as either planned or in progress. So right now our biggest focus is on team features. So basically the features that help your team, be most productive and collaborative in sharing and understanding app logic. So that's our primary focus right now. That, and also XState V5. We're rapidly approaching a beta. We've been releasing alpha versions, so please kick the tires on those, but there's still a lot more to add. And we're also going to start just adding some, I guess you could call them rough alpha docs, but it's good to have those there so that people could start playing around with the alpha. Just know that those docs are definitely subject to change, but there's a lot that we're working on.
We'll flag that in the docs when they are alpha docs, but all docs are a living document, and so you should expect them to update. That is very much the nature of documentation. We'll never remove information without replacing it with more useful information. We can promise you that.
One thing to add maybe is that every time we do these office hours, we kind of tend to highlight only new features. But make sure you can be ensured that we kind of work on fixing bugs and everything else in between as well. And now with the new editor menu, Farsad has added an option so you can see which version of the studio we're on. So, and we put in a lot of work in between. So some of the things I can think of since the last office hours is a lot of fixes for how the editor works inside Safari, like new nice icons, making the machine list work more predictable, making the back and forth navigation in the browser work nicely, and a ton of other stuff. So we tend not to highlight these, but we also fix bugs. So if you discover
Yeah.
any, please send them our way.
Yeah, and we're looking
Yes,
at adding a changelog into the studio as well that will give you a little more information every time we update. That's something that we've been working on.
Eric also says, I need that XState test ASAP. Yeah, so this has been on the back burner for a while while we were working on the studio and also XState V5, but I think I'll just make this a weekend project and actually just work on shipping that, just because it is just about ready. But what we have to do is consider that it's going to be used for XState, not only XState version 4, but version 5 as well. So we want to make sure that we're not releasing something that is then going to be deprecated because of new APIs. So this is coming soon. Trust me.
Cedric says, and then this is in reference to building machines in the editor, sometimes it's a bit disturbing when you have to add a top state and put all the states already existing inside. And this is exactly the kinds of improvements that we're also working on with the canvas, is ways to make these interactions much easier, be able to maybe copy paste them into another state, maybe drag them into another state. These are definitely things that are all top of mind right now. This is especially with Kevin and I, with our editor, like little testing hours that we do. These are the kinds of features that we're definitely nagging everyone else for as well. We come up with a lot of features every single week. The team is really working hard to prioritize them because we probably can't with far more than the team can handle.
Right.
Andrew asks, I've got a question. My coworker and I love XState, but our team is unfamiliar with this way of modeling. Is use effect reducer still a good entry point, or would you recommend something else now?
So use effect reducer is a library that I wrote a while ago that allows you to declaratively specify effects within your reducer, which seems like a forbidden thing. You know, you want to keep your reducers pure, but it technically is pure. It's just like what XState is doing. It's returning an array of actions instead of actually executing those actions until the very end. So it's still moving side effects to the edge. So I would say, in general, use reducer would be the standard way of like just warming yourself up to XState, because the important thing is thinking in terms of both events and states. And so when you're starting to model something, typically you want to start with events, which is what can happen. And then eventually you will say, okay, but this should only cause this change if some conditions are true. So you would group those conditions into states. And honestly, me talking about this should really be a blog post. So I'll work on that too, or the team could work on that. But yeah, so I would say a good entry point is going to be use reducer. And also when XState version 5 goes out, just like we previewed in the last office hours, if they have logic that lives in a reducer or even a promise, then they could quickly onboard into XState by using from reducer or from promise and adding that exact or almost that exact logic in there. And then it makes it a lot easier to ramp up to XState from there.
Oh, that's really useful. All right. Anyone else have anything that they wanted to add this week before we wrap up? I think it's been a packed office hours. We should have the next one for you in probably a couple of weeks' time. We will keep you updated on that. If you want to be the first to find out when our office hours are, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, or if you follow us on LinkedIn or on Twitter or on Twitch, you'll be able to find us there. And hey, maybe we'll be on Mastodon soon. I'm working on that one. We will catch you all later. Thank you so much for joining us. As we always say, those of you who join us live really make this what it is. We really appreciate your questions and your feedback. And we will catch you all soon. Goodbye.